Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Lewis Lautman, and you are about to be inspired and energized to take your business and your life to the next level. We are providing training that makes a difference in the lives of millions all around the world through our seminars, coaching programs, and video trainings just like this one. But before we get started with today's interview, we want to have a word from our sponsor. Supreme Outsourcing is an outsourcing company that wants you to delegate the work that you don't want to do, don't know how to do, or quite frankly, don't feel that it's worth your time. They want to do that work for you. If you're ready for more freedom, if you want to reduce your expenses, and you'd like to increase your revenues, give Supreme Outsourcing a call or send them an email or go ahead to their website and contact them. They do anything that can be done online or on the telephone. Anything from building a website to designing your graphics to your social media management to making outbound sales calls or appointment setting calls to taking inbound calls or customer service calls, doing data research, data entry, your bookkeeping, you name it. Supreme Outsourcing is the supreme choice in delegating your tasks to. If you want to become a lifestyle master, you need to start delegating more. And if you know me, you know that I say a master of lifestyle is one whose best friends don't know the difference between their work and their play. So this is Lewis Lautman, and get ready for today's training. Hey everybody, it's Lewis Lautman and welcome back to another fantastic interview. I'm so excited today because we've got a really amazing guy. This is one of the guys that I call almost superhuman. And for those of you that know me, these superhuman people are these extraordinary people that I come across that really achieve superhuman results. They do more in less time than most people do in a lifetime. And this is a gentleman who's been able to do it in a very short span. He's had extraordinary results. His name is Mr. Michael Drew. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing great, Lewis. How are you?
Very good. Now, Michael, we've known each other for a couple years here now, and I've had the pleasure of seeing your presentations, meeting several of the great, extraordinary, best-selling authors that you've worked with, clients of yours that you've had a tremendous impact on. One of the things that most people talk about you, whether you realize it or not, is your track record. You know, you've got a great track record with the clients that you've worked with. Not only are you working with extraordinary, top-of-the-game, high-level clients, but you produce for them. Now, I don't want to get the numbers wrong, so I want to find out. There's a story going around, I guess. It's that, you know, you're the secret sauce for a best-selling book. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started in publishing it when I was 18 and actually worked with a gentleman by the name of Roy H. Williams, who's the co-author with me on my book, Pendulum. And we launched his book to #3 on the New York Times and #1 on the Wall Street Journal. And since then, I've successfully launched 74 consecutive books onto the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Business Week, Inc., and New York Times bestsellers list.
Now, I'm going to pause you there for a second. Now, I don't know if our readers got that, so I hope you get and really understand what Michael just said here. He launched, now how many books was it, Michael?
74.
Okay, 74 consecutive books onto the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestseller list. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, what are the chances of a book making? You know, there's a lot of people out there. I want to be an author. I want to get my book written. What are the chances? How many books are written per year? And what are the chances that that book becomes a bestseller or even hits the list?
According to the Book Industry Study Group and Bowker, who issues ISBN numbers, there were 1.13 million new titles that were published last year. To give you some data on the industry, the average retail bookstore carries 100,000 titles. Of those 100,000 titles, between 70 to 80% are what we call backlist titles, which are your perennials, your classics, and last year's bestsellers, meaning of the 1 million, 1.3 million books published last year, between 20 to 30,000 of them ever made it onto retail bookstore shelf. The New York Times bestsellers list has, in any given week, 100 spots that a book could make onto one of several different bestsellers lists. And the of the authors that make the New York Times bestsellers list, most of them are authors that have been there many, many, many times. On the nonfiction list and on the business advice how-to list for the New York Times, there were less than 270 authors that had books appear on those bestsellers. Now, some of those authors had multiple books or had the same book appear over and over and over again. but there were less than 200. There were less than 270 authors that made the New York Times bestseller list. So really, what you're talking about is a fraction of a fraction of a percent.
Fraction. I mean, that's more than 1 in 1,000,000, and you've done it 70 some odd times. So you're like 1 in 100 million uh, chance out there. But there's obviously some kind of recipe. You have the formula, and we're going to get to talking about your new book, Pendulum, in a little bit here. So you started working with Roy. You were able to get his book onto these extraordinary lists, and then you did it consecutively over and over and over for a bunch of different authors as well.
That's right. Now, what's interesting is what we say that we do. I mean, putting a book on the bestsellers list represents about 30% of what my organization, what my company does. What we say that we do is we help thought leaders and authors find their voice, test and refine their voice, and amplify their voice. Essentially, we are a platform building company. And in our organization, there are three different elements to platform building. Number one is Pendulum, which is what we're about to talk about. Number two is what we call personas, which is understanding your audience not only demographically but psychographically and speaking to the felt need of your audience. And number three is publishing. Publishing is how you get your content and information into the hands of your potential audience or tribe.
So you do a lot more than just get people onto the bestseller list. You really help them write their book, find their voice, position, all the above. What's the name of your company, Michael? In case there's anyone out there who's looking for it, and we'll put a link below in case you want to contact Michael or you have further questions.
Well, the name of the organization is Promote a Book. Our website is promoteabook.com. We also have a blog over at beneaththecover.com and a personal blog with me talking about what I personally fancy, eating sushi and other such fun things, over at michaelrdrew.com.
michaelrdrew.com. All right, so Michael, when I was lucky enough to kind of get a pre-copy of this book, it's been in my hands for a little bit here, The Pendulum. Talk to us a little bit about this book. When did it officially come out yet? I know I've been hearing some buzz on Facebook and getting some emails. What was the date on it?
It was the first Tuesday of the month. I want to say that was either the 2nd or the 5th. Okay. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but it was the first Tuesday of October. Was the official pub date. So very excited to have it out. And it's been a fun story because, as I mentioned, Roy was my first best-selling author. It was about 14 years ago now when we did the book Secret Formulas of the Wizard of Ads. And categorically, Roy is the most brilliant man that I've ever met in my life. Everything that I do, everything that I teach, everything that I espouse are based upon the teachings of Roy H. Williams. Alex Mendozian says that Roy is the next Buckminster Fuller. He's just that brilliant of a guy. I've worked with brilliant men like Peter Diamandis, the CEO of Yum Brands, which owns KFC, Pizza, and Taco Bell. I've worked with the CEO of Keller Williams, MicroStrategies, and other major corporations. And while all of them are brilliant men, none of them hold a shadow to the brilliance of Roy H. Williams. Roy is the most brilliant man I've ever met. I was fortunate to have met him at the age of 19 and to be able to work with him on his book. When I was 21, Roy and I were in New York for Book Expo America, and Roy said to me, "Michael, the winners and losers in life are determined when the teams are picked. There are two teams essential to the success of a book. Number one are the team of people who pick you to be on their team, and number two are the people who you pick to be on your team." And I've been very fortunate to have been picked by people like Roy H. Williams and Ivan Meisner and others to be on their team. And I'm very fortunate also to have a phenomenal team supporting me today. Now, Roy is one of the top advertising experts in the world today. His ad agency out of Austin, Texas, Williams Marketing, is the fourth largest buyer of radio advertising in North America. And he was the brilliant mind behind some of the most famous ads in all of radio and TV advertising. And as an advertising guy, Roy's objective for his clients is to be able to give them a competitive advantage over their competitors. And one of the best ways to do that is to be able to understand the hearts of your audience and to be able to predict what they want before they want it. The Pendulum presentation for which the book is based was initially developed in 2003. We're talking almost a decade ago by Roy H. Williams, based upon the research that he had done over the last 300 years of Western civilization. And so, developed by Roy, and it gave he and his clients a huge competitive advantage as we moved from me to we back at the beginning of this past decade. Now, what happened in 2007 is that Roy got bored with Pendulum because it was kind of old and passe, and he was already getting the benefit, and so he stopped giving the presentation. I took the presentation up and started giving it to uh, people in the personal and business development industries, and I've been doing so for the last 5 years. I've spoken with the Dalai Lama, and Sir Richard Branson, and Stephen Covey, and other people. I've privately consulted the Franklin Covey organization with the concepts and principles within Pendulum. And about a year and a half ago, I presented for a group of publishers, and a major New York publisher, our publisher, Vanguard Press, a division of Perseus, approached us about taking that and turning it into a book, and so we did. As a book, as a platform builder, and as a marketer myself, of course, the obvious attraction for me is that it also gives me and my clients the competitive advantage over their competitors, which is why I had the initial interest. And so, what happened is Roy and I got approached by the publisher. We went back and we researched not the last 400 years of recorded Western civilization as Roy had previously done, but rather the last 3,000 years of recorded Western civilization. And one of Roy's students is a Nobel Prize winner by the name of Kary Mullis. Kary Mullis won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of the polymer chain reaction, which is very critical with understanding DNA. This is back in 2001. And we talked with Kary about our desire to go back and write the book. And what Kary said to us is he said, Roy, there are very few true scientists left in the world today. Most scientists come up with a hypothesis and go out to prove that hypothesis. But that is bad science. There is no one better qualified than you, the creator of hypothesis, to disprove your hypothesis. No one knows your hypothesis better than you do. So Kary's words ringing in our ears, we threw out that he had personally researched for the presentation and came up with a very scientific set of standards to be able to go back and challenge our hypothesis over the last 3,000 years. As an example, we did not want to be accused of picking and choosing different sources through history to prove our point, so we picked one. Now, someone could say that might have a bias one way or the other, but you couldn't, in terms of our theory about 40-year cycles, nobody could say, well, there's a one way or the other towards the cycles that we were trying to prove. So we used Wikipedia as our of research, instead of using the Billboard charts like we did in the presentation to be able to show shifts in music that correspond with the shift from me to we. We used an organization called T-Sort. T-Sort actually, if what we're saying is that this is applicable within all of Western civilization, then Billboard doesn't work because that only works in English-speaking countries. It charts what's best-selling in English-speaking countries. But what T-Sort did as a website, Sort.com, Tsort.com, is they compiled from all Western civilizations all of the best-selling songs for the last 80 years onto a website and compiled that through a normal algorithm to determine what the best-selling music was during those different eras. So we used Wikipedia and T-Sort instead of using the New York Times bestsellers list as we did in our presentation. We used Publishers Weekly, which has a much wider audience in terms of where they gather data from. And we went back to disprove our hypothesis. And what was interesting is the more we got into research, the more we realized how scarily right we were. We really wanted to be able to disprove it, and we couldn't. And what became painfully obvious is that human beings are not snowflakes that we'd like to believe that we are.
And with your, would you call it a pendulum theory, or is it just fact? You basically predict the outcome of decades and time of human culture, human outcomes, human events, experiences. What would you call the pendulum? It's obviously a book. It's a way of life. What is it?
It's a way of understanding the values of today's society, the lens through which we make our decisions, and how we value each other. It's the carrot at the end of the stick that we chase, and it, according to our research, it changes every 40 years. We don't necessarily know what that carrot will be, but our research shows us that carrot will always be brought to us by the youth. Now, in scientific terms, it has to stay a theory because this is sociology. This is dealing with human beings, and there's only so much data available on mankind. We believe that this theory to be correct. We believe that we've been able to prove that out. But in terms of that, it must stay within theory. However, even though it's in theory, it's a theory. We've been able to practice take this theory and apply it within our businesses and within the businesses of our clients, and been able to get real and direct results for their businesses.
Yeah, so give us an idea for the people who pick up a copy of the Pendulum. I mean, if you're intrigued by what Michael's talking about, we have a link below. You absolutely want to pick up a copy. And Michael, you basically predict trends. You predict things that are going to happen based on things that have happened in the past, or whether they're saying they're going to happen. I mean, well, give us an idea what the reader might pick up. Like, what are some reasons why someone must read this book? People in business, people in life. I mean, why must someone read this book today?
So, Black Schwab, the famous sports writer from the Chicago Tribune, said, "The reason history must repeat itself is because we pay so little attention to it the first time." You that read the Old Testament, King David said in the Book of Solomon, "The thing that has been is that which shall be, and that which shall be is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun." Where it said, "See, this is new; it has already been of old time which was before us." You know, the reception in Western civilization today is perfectly explainable. There's a reason why it happens, and it happens every 80 years. It just so happens that it occurs when we move from a we cycle to a me cycle. So for the purpose of your viewers, let me, if you don't mind, let me explain what the two cycles are.
Yeah.
We believe that there's a 40-year cycle of me, about the individual. It's about freedom and self-expression, and it's about big dreams. In a we cycle, it's not about big dreams. It's about small actions. It's not about going to the moon. It's about going across the street and giving that poor homeless guy something to eat. It's not about the individual. It's about the community, the collective, the we. It's about all of us working together for the common good. Now, the last completed we cycle was from 1923 to 1963. The last completed me cycle was from 1963 to 2003. And the current we cycle we're in today is from 2003 to 2043. Now, understanding this is that, as I mentioned, we are in a recession. Why are we in a recession? Well, in a me cycle, as we always, human beings always take a good thing too far. And when we're in a me cycle, where the beauties are freedom and self-expression and big dreaming, the the downside of it is that we've become a society that is plastic, that is phony, and a society of posers. We're all trying to become big in a me cycle. We always try to become bigger and better than who we are. But when we do that, that leads to problems with in our own personal lives and within business, and it creates an inflation within the marketplace. And when we move into a we cycle, our currencies are authenticity and transparency. And when we see the inflation that we created in a me cycle, we always have a deflationary period of time. It happens like clockwork. In fact, the economist Harry Dent Jr. Wrote several books on this very point. He didn't know the me versus we cycles, but when you actually look at the way that he lays it out, it happens every single time like clockwork as you move from a me cycle to a we cycle. So if you can predict something like the economics of a country or of a civilization, you can predict other things. You can look at politics. You can look at in business. You can look at how to communicate differently with your audience. 2003, before there was social media, Roy was talking about the need for social media. It's all past, but in 2000, when Roy was talking about it, it seemed revolutionary to everybody. But the reality is, and what I want to point out is, social media is predictable if you understand the cycles. Because it's not the technology that's driving people, it's people that's driving the technology. And the need and explosion in social media and the way the internet works is based upon the cultural needs, the demand of society as a whole in terms of how they want to communicate, how they want to build community. So we can see that application of Pendulum. It is all parts of life: sex, religion, politics, economics, business, interpersonal relationships. It impacts everything because we as human beings, we're psychological beings. We have a way of emotionally dealing with things, and it's very predictable how we change from one extreme to another.
Fantastic. So the people who would pick this up, it's not only, I mean, the majority of people that are probably watching this are somewhat entrepreneurial, that are in business. that are looking for the competitive edge. This isn't only relevant for business people, but potentially just people in general who are looking to get a better idea of what's going on in culture and humanity. Would be a relevant book for them as well. Would that be about accurate?
This book is not for business. If you are out in the middle of nowhere and you don't care about people and you're not influenced by anybody else, this book's probably not for you.
Right.
The reality, the intention behind the book for Roy and I was to give our clients a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And it does this very well. It explains exactly what we need to do. But this does impact society as a whole beyond that. As an example, back in 2007, before the previous presidential campaign, before the primaries, Roy and I predicted who the winner of the presidential election would be. And we did it not based upon party affiliation or based upon the name of the person. At the time, before the primaries, Hillary Clinton was the odds-on favorite to win the election because of name, reputation, infrastructure, and money. But what we said is, no, let's not look at name recognition or party affiliation, but let's look at what the needs of society as a whole are and make our guesstimation based upon that. Well, in 2007, society as a whole, we're fully in a we cycle. We wanted to build community. So look, on the Democratic side, you have a feminist, strong individualistic or me ideology, and a community organizer. And on the Republican side, you had Mr. Perfect. Perfect family, perfect hair, look perfect, perfect business, perfect in every way. You had a maverick. Now, a maverick term means to break away and do your own thing, which is a very me ideology. And then finally, you had a populist preacher. A populist preacher is someone who is about society as a whole, maybe from a religious bent, but wants to make sure that everybody's taken care of. So if you were to pick a Democrat in a we cycle where it's about building community, you would pick the community organizer. And if you were a Republican, based upon us being in a community cycle or society, pick the populist preacher. Well, the Democrats pick the community organizer, and the Republicans pick the maverick. Now, you could blame Bush, anything else. I would tell you that would be wrong. The reason that McCain lost to Barack Obama is because Obama was a we figure bringing people together to create community. John McCain was a me figure who was about breaking away from the existing system and doing his own thing, not necessarily someone who would build a community. So we see this in economics, we see this in politics. You know, in the presentation that you've seen, we show this in music, we show this in literature, we show this in art, we show this in every facet of life. And the reality is our psychology as individuals and as a society as a whole dictates how we view the world and how we make our decisions. Now, the interesting thing is while the book started off and is heavily aimed at helping business owners be able to succeed, to be able to help us pull us out of the recession, there was a bigger mission that came out of the book for Roy and I. So, again, we found that there are these two 40-year cycles, me versus we. The last me cycle started in 1963 and completed in 2003. The current we cycle is from 2003 until 2043. What we found, the movement, and this is in the book, not in the presentation, but to create the movement from a me cycle to a we cycle, or from a we cycle to a me cycle, we found that there are these 420 generational patterns. And what I want to point out is that, for the sake of the book and the presentation, we do not define a generation as birth cohorts. We define a generation as life cohorts, the predominant society as a whole. We don't believe in baby boomers, Generation Xers, or Generation Y. We all have the same generational outlook today. It's life cohorts, not birth cohorts. But so 63 was the beginning of the last me cycle. 43 was the zenith of the last we cycle. 53 was 10 years before the beginning of the me cycle. Starting in 1953, the youth of society were clamoring for freedom and self-expression. Remember that when we take a good thing too far in a we cycle, we become a society that's highly regimented and conformed. And starting in 53, we see the youth of society demand freedom and self-expression. So we see the release of Playboy and A Catcher in the Rye and Jack Kerouac, and we see Rock and Roll be born starting in 1958, and all of these phenomenal things. Starting in 1953, the youth of society started a new micro cycle called I'm okay, you're okay. So it went from 53 to 63, 63 to 73. So you're literally 10 years before, 10 years after the tipping point, the beginning of a new cycle. That was I'm okay. Rainbows and unicorns. Everything's beautiful and sunny. And, a song and a Coke can change the world if only we would let it. And then we hit 73. And in 73, we start taking, so we're now 10 years into a new cycle, we start taking a good thing too far. Whereas in the previous cycle, it was about rainbows and unicorns and everything looking beautiful. Now it starts to make things a little bit more plastic, a little bit more funny. We start to try to contrive feeling, and we move into a cycle of I'm screwed up, you're okay. And this was from 73 to 83 to the zenith, and then back down the other way to 73, 83, 93. We were in a cycle of I'm screwed up, you're okay. And this was the birth of guru worship. If you think about the musicians and the sports athletes in the 80s, we have Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan in basketball, and we have other flamboyant people like Jim McMahon and others in football, and every sport we have these I look up to gurus. And in business and personal development, isn't it interesting that in '83 that Tony Robbins his first album, and that '84 is when Stephen R. Covey released Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. So we get into this hero worship or guru worship mindset. And then we start really taking a good thing too far. So in 1993, we're 10 years down. So here's 83, the zenith of me. We're 10 years down into into a me cycle. We're 10 years before the beginning of a we cycle. We see alphas emerge in literature and technology. We see the birth of the internet. We see all sorts of more we ideology. And starting in 93, the youth of society starts saying, dog, in all that. We see gangster rap. We see the grunge movement out of the Pacific Northwest. Both sets of music talking about what? Grunge was talking about what it was like to grow up in suburban America as a white kid, and gangster rap was talking about what it was like to grow up in the ghetto. All about being real, being raw. This is what's going on right now. And so we move into an era of, all that, dog. I'm screwed up. You're screwed up. So let's just both get over it and move along, shall we? And in that, from 93 until this coming year, until 2013. But we can already see in this current election cycle, even, we can see the seeds of what's going to be happening over the course of the next 20 years. We're moving into an era that we call, we're screwed up. We call this the witch hunt cycle. And the reason that we call it the witch hunt cycle is that throughout the history of mankind, if there's been a witch hunt, a demonization of a group, it's occurred during this 20-year time frame. Of course, we have the Spanish Inquisition, we have Bloody Mary, we have the Asheville Salem witch trials, we have the American Revolution, the First French Revolution, the American Civil War. 80 years ago in Europe, we had Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler. In the United States, in that same time frame, we had Japanese intern camps, and we had Joseph McCarthy. I'm okay, and you're a commie bastard, right? So throughout the history of mankind, if there's been a witch hunt, it's been within this same 20-year time frame of I'm okay, you're screwed up. And so it started off as a hardcore business book, has become something bigger to us. We really want to be able to take this message and spread it to society as a whole, because we believe that it takes a long time for human beings to change the way that they think. I also know that most humans, as we are still ending this I'm okay, I'm screwed up, you're screwed up mindset, don't want as other groups. We actually want to be able to work together. Unfortunately, if we're not careful and we don't educate ourselves, that's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to start demonizing groups and get into witch hunts. And so what we've done, and we appreciate your support on this, is we're not giving money, we're actually giving the book away. And what your link will go over, your link below will go to, is a page where your viewers can get the book for free. We're just asking that they cover a $7 shipping and handling charge to get the book, because we believe that if we can spread this message and for it to go wide enough, we can accent the best things of a we cycle of working together for a common good and moot the worst parts of the I'm okay, you're screwed up. Those of your viewers that are entrepreneurs and business owners, I want it's really valuable for them. So what we're doing is when they pay for the shipping and handling of the book, we've included an online product where they can, for free, that they can watch the 90-minute presentation, Pendulum presentation, which you've seen, and we've given them 3 other videos that are part of a training series to be able to help them put the theories of Pendulum into action. The reality is, theory is great, but if you can't get practical results, nobody's really interested in that. And as a marketer, all I'm interested is in results. And so we've shared the best of what we've learned over the last decade, implementing in practice these theories.
So it sounds like you, by studying the past, are really helping us with the pendulum to set up a bright future for ourselves. And if you didn't hear that, Michael is going to be giving away the book for free. You're just paying for the shipping. And he's also including, was it 3 other additional videos to support the information in the book as well?
We're actually giving the full 90-minute pendulum presentation, professionally recorded in a studio, 3 cameras. We're including, and you can only see this on stage, so we're obviously giving that away, and that's huge. I think in and of itself, it's worth getting for that. But 3 other videos. We for business owners, we looked at Playboy. Playboy is a literary alpha that helped. That was literary alpha that predicted what would happen in a me cycle as they were released in 1953, and we used them as a case study to look at what they did well as they moved into a me cycle and they became the voice of that me generation, and how they've floundered the last decade, losing their foothold of being the voice of an emerging youth generation. We then go into talking about the depth of sales funnels and the birth of what we call gravity well. That in a me cycle, it's about push. In a we cycle, it's about pull. In a cycle, it's about seduction. In a we cycle, it's about intimacy. So what we actually do, something that Roy and I apply with all of our clients, is a process that we call the 12 steps of intimacy. And according to psychologists, in interpersonal relationships, say there's somebody you want to date, if you skip more than one of those 12 steps of intimacy, the interpersonal relationship being a long-term relationship is actually less than 5%. In a we cycle, it's about building community through building relationship. The same rules apply. And what worked 5 years ago, 10 years ago in marketing and direct marketing that was seductive or transaction-based is working far less well, in many cases not working at all, in today's relationship intimacy-focused age. And so what we teach is literally how to apply the psychological tools of the 12 steps of intimacy to being able to create and build and deepen relationships with your customer. And the third training video is a video that discusses what I mentioned earlier, personas. And this is we show how to deepen the relationship, the intimacy with your customer by understanding their hearts, by understanding what their felt needs are in a really intimate way so that you can maximize the results that you're reaching for them.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, thank you, Michael. It sounds like an excellent opportunity for those of you that pick up the Pendulum for free. Michael is giving it to you as a gift. You're paying for shipping, and he's going to give you those 3 videos with them within themselves. Sounds like a fantastic opportunity. Roy H. Williams, The Wizard of Ads, Michael Drew, he's got the track record. The book is The Pendulum. Any final thoughts for those of us that might be able to leverage what's next? How can we capitalize on these trends that you've profiled over the last, like you said, 3,000 years? How can we capitalize on what's next for us?
We as business owners and marketers have 2 choices. We can either get in front of the trend or we can be reactionary. That most businesses and most marketers are reactionary. And when you become reactionary, it's very difficult to be able to create the world that we want, to be able to do the bigger things that we all desire. The reality is most people aren't satisfied with making a buck. Most of us have a desire to contribute to the world in a major way. And it's very difficult to do that if we are always in a reactionary mindset. And in fact, suggest to everybody watching today that if they want to be part of the change to pull us out of the recession that we're in, that you need to be able to understand these concepts so that you can communicate with your audience differently, so that you can market, so you can offer them different products and services. I promise that the solution to the recession that we're in is simply shifting the way that we do things, and not looking at something like social media as a strategy. Social media is not a strategy. Social media is a tactic. And applied incorrectly, social media can become bad very quickly. It can cause more harm to our business than good.
Wow, that reason alone is reason to check into it. The link is below. If you've enjoyed this article, please, or this video interview with Michael Drew, please post it on Facebook, tweet it out to your followers, share the Pendulum with your friends, and be sure to pick up the book. The link is below. Mr. Michael Drew, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. This is Louis Lotman, and have a great day.